on the ballot for referendum on the vote of November 8th, 2011 concerning the wind ordinance, number 32.
I will read what we've been submitted by Mike Homier, and it's included in a resolution. It's entitled Resolution Submitting Ordinance Number 32 as amended, an amendment to the 1974 zoning ordinance of Riga Township to the electors. At the special meeting of the Riga Township Board of Riga Township, Lenawee County, Michigan, held at the Township Hall on the 22nd day of August 2011 at 7 p.m. Attendance. The following resolution was offered by and seconded, if that's what happens. Whereas Riga Township is authorized by the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act to adopt and amend zoning ordinances that regulate the health, safety, and general welfare of persons and property. And whereas the Clean, Renewable, and Efficient Energy Act, Public Act 295 of 2008, Michigan Compiled Laws 460.1001, is intended to promote the development of clean energy, renewable energy, and energy optimization, including wind energy, through the implementation of a clean, renewable, and energy efficient standard. And whereas the township has initiated steps under the MZEA to amend the text of the township's 1974 zoning ordinance to, among other things, regulate wind energy systems within the township and achieve an appropriate balance between the need for clean, renewable energy resources and the need to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the township. And whereas the Riga Township Planning Commission conducted a public hearing regarding the proposed text amendments to the 1974 zoning ordinance, the proposed wind energy regulations, on March 11, 2011, and has held numerous public meetings regarding the proposed wind energy regulations. And whereas the Planning Commission approved the proposed wind energy regulations as amended at a public meeting held on May 2nd, 2011, and whereas the Planning Commission submitted the proposed wind energy regulations to the Lenawee County Planning Commission on or about May 2nd, 2011, and whereas at its meeting on July 6, 2011, the Township Board adopted ordinance number 32 as amended, an amendment to the 1974 zoning ordinance of Riga Township. And whereas the Township Clerk published the ordinance or a summary thereof in a newspaper of general circulation in the Township within 15 days, and whereas on July 14, 2011, the Township received a notice of intent to file a petition seeking a referendum on the ordinance. And whereas on August 10, 2011, petitioners filed a petition signed by a number of registered electors residing in Riga Township of not less than 15% of the total vote cast for all candidates for governor at the last preceding general election at which a governor was elected, with the Township Clerk requesting the submission of Riga Township Ordinance number 32 to the electors for their approval. And whereas on August 15, 2011, the Township Clerk determined that the petition was adequate and verified the signatures. And whereas as required by the MZEA, the Township must provide the manner of submitting the ordinance to the electors of Riga Township for their approval or rejection. Now therefore, the Township Board of the Township of Riga, Lenawee County, Michigan resolves as follows. Number 1, the Township Board shall submit the following proposition to the electors of Riga Township at the election on November 8, 2011. Riga Township zoning referendum. Shall the Riga Township zoning ordinance be amended as described in the Riga Township zoning amendment ordinance number 32 to allow regulations on wind energy systems within Riga Township? Yes or no? Number 2, the Township Clerk shall promptly certify and submit this resolution along with the ballot language to the Lenawee County Clerk so that the proposal may be included on the November 8, 2011 election. Number 3, any resolutions that are inconsistent with this resolution are hereby repealed. A vote on the foregoing resolution was taken and was as follows.
it up. Anyone like to make a motion then to accept the ballot wording as presented and written by Mr. Holman? I'll second that. Any other discussions? All those in favor then, of accepting the wording as presented, signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed? Same sign. Did you abstain, Dick, or?
Yes.
Carried, so, 4-1. Motion passed. Our moratorium runs out, if I'm not mistaken, September. So we might want to make a discussion, kind of a discussion about extending the moratorium on wind. It runs out in September. Well, until November, if it's in place. And unless it gets voted down, we wouldn't need a moratorium, but if it gets voted down, then we would might want a moratorium until we can rewrite it, the ordinance. What do you think? About an extension of the moratorium, anybody?
I think we should.
Actually, the person that brought it up was Mike Homier. He said that the current moratorium runs out in September. Because we're going to have a referendum election in November, the ordinance cannot take effect till after the election. If it's approved at the election, it will take effect when the election is certified, which is usually within a week of the election. If it is turned down, then he said that the planning commission could take up the issue, the township could take up the issue and make amendments to the ordinance or write a whole new one, whatever they would decide to do, and that would take us more than a month or so. So he suggested that we extend, or, yeah, it would be an extension, or put in another moratorium for another 6 months beginning with the expiration of the current moratorium. And there, just as in the current one, if an ordinance were adopted and enacted during that time, the moratorium would be over at that point. So anyway, he submitted wording, which we can review, and you guys can decide what you want to do with it. And I guess the proper way to start would be to read through the ordinance. And then, if you want to adopt the ordinance, there's a resolution by which to do that. And I'll read the ordinance. It would be, if we adopted it, it would be ordinance number 33, an ordinance to impose a moratorium on the issuance of permits, licenses, or approvals for wind energy systems. Ragged Township ordains Section 1 definition, wind energy system. Equipment that converts and then stores or transfers energy from the wind into usable forms of energy and includes any base, blade, foundation, generator, nacelle, rotor, tower, transformer, turbine, vane, wire, or other component used in the system. Also refers to the term wind turbine or wind generator. Section 2, findings. In accordance with Acts 1945, Public Act 246, and 2006, Public Act 110, as amended, Raga Township has determined that, number one, when Raga Township adopted its zoning ordinance, the widespread establishment and use of wind energy systems was not contemplated. Number two, pursuant to Act 1945, Public Act 246 being Michigan Compiled Law 41.181, and the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act 2006, Public Act 110 being Michigan Compiled Laws 125.3101. Raga Township has the authority to establish reasonable regulations to control the establishment and use of wind energy systems in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, including persons and property. Number three, the township desires to consider the best way to implement appropriate and reasonable regulations applicable to the establishment and use of wind energy systems in order to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of township residents. Number four, on September 13, 2010, the township adopted ordinance number 30, an ordinance to impose a moratorium on the issuance of permits, licenses, or approvals for wind energy systems. A moratorium upon the issuance of any and all permits, licenses, and approvals for any property subject to or under the jurisdiction of the township zoning ordinance for the establishment and use of wind energy systems for 1 year, or until an amendment to the township zoning ordinance, whichever occurs first. Number five, the moratorium ordinance was published in a newspaper of general circulation in the township on September 22nd, 2010, and became effective on September 23rd, 2010. Number six, on July 6, 2011, the township adopted ordinance number 32, an amendment to the 1974 zoning ordinance of Raga Township as amended, the wind energy ordinance. Number seven, the wind energy ordinance has not yet taken effect because on July 14, 2011, the township received a notice of intent to file a petition seeking a referendum on the wind energy ordinance, and on August 10, 2011, petitioners filed a petition signed by a number of registered electors residing in Raga Township of not less than 15% of the total vote cast for all candidates for governor at the last preceding general election at which a governor was elected, with the township clerk requesting the submission of the wind energy ordinance to the electors for their approval. Number eight, on August 15, 2011, the township clerk determined that the petition was adequate and verified the signatures on the petition. Number nine, on August 22nd, 2011, the township board adopted a resolution submitting the wind energy ordinance to the electors at the election on November 8, 2011. Number 10, the moratorium ordinance prohibiting the issuance of any and all permits, licenses, and approvals for any property subject to or under the jurisdiction of the township zoning ordinance for the establishment and use of wind energy systems will terminate on September 23, 2011. Number 11, imposing an additional moratorium on a limited temporary basis is reasonable and necessary in order to allow time for the submission of the ordinance to the electors at the election on November 8, 2011. If the referendum is successful, allow the time for the township to review and implement alternative regulations. Number 12, an additional moratorium should be imposed upon the issuance of any and all permits, licenses, and approvals for any property subject to or under the jurisdiction of the township zoning ordinance for the establishment and use of wind energy systems for 180 days or until the wind energy ordinance becomes effective, whichever occurs first. Section 3, moratorium. A moratorium is hereby imposed upon the issuance of any and all permits, licenses, or approvals for any property subject to or under the jurisdiction of the township zoning ordinance for the establishment or use of wind energy systems so long as this ordinance is in effect. Section 4, term of ordinance. The moratorium imposed by this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon termination of the moratorium ordinance for the establishment or use of wind energy systems and will remain in effect for 180 days following the effective date